The conference room fell silent as the projector screen lit up with my private messages to Xavier. "Hey, can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." It read clear as day for all 20 of my colleagues to see. My heart stopped. This was supposed to be a standard team meeting about the quarterly projections at Apex Tech in downtown Chicago. Not the moment my entire world crumbled around me. I had been so careful for 3 years at the company, keeping my personal life locked away like a secret file no one could access. But someone had synced my laptop during the break, and now every eye in the room was on me. Whispers rippled like a wave. "Is Tobias gay?" One analyst muttered just loud enough for me to hear. My boss, Mr. Harlan, cleared his throat, his face turning red. Let's just move on to the slides," he said. But the damage was irreversible. By the time the meeting ended, the isolation had already begun. No one met my gaze in the hallway. The usual fist bumps and coffee runs vanished. I sat alone in the break room, my sandwich tasting like cardboard, while laughter from the corner table felt aimed directly at me. Later that afternoon, my lead project was quietly reassigned to someone else with a vague email about team restructuring. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat I no longer recognized as my own. That evening, alone in my small apartment overlooking the Chicago River, I replayed every moment. My parents back in rural Ohio still believed I was the golden son dating some imaginary girl from college. Coming out to them had always felt impossible. Now the whole office knew before they did. The internal storm raged harder than the wind outside my window. Was this who I really was, the guy everyone suddenly avoided like a contagious rumor? I texted Xavier, my boyfriend of 6 months, the only person who had made me feel seen. "We need to talk. Tonight." His reply came after 20 agonizing minutes. "Not here. Too risky right now." We met at a quiet park bench in Lincoln Park under the cover of dusk, far from prying eyes. Xavier's dark hair caught the streetlight as he sat beside me, shoulders tense. "Tobias, you saw what happened. If they connect us, my promotion is gone. My family in Texas would disown me." His voice cracked, but the words sliced deeper than any office whisper. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "I thought we were in this together," I said, the hurt rising like bile. He looked away toward the lake, the silence between us heavier than the city noise. The next morning at work was worse. A group of developers laughed loudly when I entered the kitchen, one saying, "Careful, guys, don't drop the soap around Tobias." I walked out without my coffee, cheeks burning. Reports I needed for my performance review suddenly went missing. Colleagues who once asked for my advice now pretended I was invisible. The pressure built inside my chest until breathing felt like a conscious effort. Every night I lay awake questioning everything. My choices, my identity, the future I had planned. By Friday, the weight felt unbearable. I called my sister in Ohio, keeping my voice steady. "Work's been crazy," I lied. She laughed, oblivious. "You'll crush it, big brother." If only she knew how close I was to shattering. The weekend blurred into a haze of doubt. I drove aimlessly along Lakeshore Drive, the skyline mocking my smallness. Xavier texted once, a short, "I'm sorry," but nothing more. The betrayal stung because I understood his fear too well, the same fear that had kept me silent for years. Yet understanding didn't ease the loneliness. Monday brought fresh humiliation when my name was omitted from the team recognition email. I sat at my desk, staring at the blank screen, realizing the slow exile had officially begun. Something inside me shifted then, a quiet resolve forming beneath the pain. I wouldn't let them erase me, not without a fight. But first I had to survive the days ahead, one isolating hour at a time. By the end of the second week, the pattern was clear. Meetings I used to lead now happened without me. Invitations to after-work drinks dried up. Even the receptionist avoided eye contact. I threw myself into solo tasks, coding late into the night to prove my worth. But the feedback was always delayed or curt. Xavier passed me in the corridor once, our eyes meeting for a split second before he looked down. That brief connection hurt more than silence. At home, I scrolled through old photos of us, deleting them one by one only to restore them minutes later. The internal conflict tore at me. Part of me wanted to scream the truth to the entire office. Part of me wanted to disappear. My mother called that Sunday. "You sound tired, honey. Everything okay?" I forced a laugh. "Just busy, Mom." Hanging up, I felt the lie settle like lead in my stomach. The man I was becoming, isolated, angry, unsure, scared me more than the colleagues who now treated me like a stranger. Yet in the quiet moments, a new thought emerged. Maybe this was the push I needed to stop hiding. Maybe becoming the boss of my own life started right here, in the ashes of their rejection. I didn't know how, but the spark was there, flickering against the darkness they had tried to bury me in. The spark didn't last long before reality doused it. By the third week, the subtle bullying escalated into something harder to ignore. My performance review was postponed indefinitely with a note about ongoing team dynamics. I confronted HR, but the sympathetic woman behind the desk only offered platitudes. "We take all complaints seriously, Tobias," but without specific incidents her voice trailed off, leaving me emptier than before. I walked out of the office building that afternoon, the Chicago wind whipping my coat like it wanted to strip away the last of my dignity. Xavier finally agreed to meet again, this time at a small cafe in Wicker Park where no one from work would venture. He arrived late, eyes darting as if expecting cameras. "I miss you," he whispered across the table, but his hands stayed wrapped around his coffee like a shield. I leaned forward. "Then stop pretending I don't exist at the office. We can fight this together." His laugh was bitter. "You think it's that simple? My parents are flying in next month. One rumor and everything I've built collapses." The words landed like stones. I wanted to shout that my world was already collapsing, but the cafe was too public. Instead, I stood up. "If love means hiding, maybe we were never real." His face crumpled, but he didn't follow when I left. The drive home blurred with tears I refused to let fall. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started updating my resume for the first time in years. The decision felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying yet necessary. I applied to 3 startups in San Francisco that night, cities away from the toxicity. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by Xavier's regretful eyes and the laughter echoing in the break room. At work the next day, the atmosphere had thickened. A new intern was warned loudly in the kitchen. "Stay away from Tobias. You know, for your own good." I kept my head down, finishing code that no one would credit me for. During lunch, I ate at my desk, the isolation now a constant companion. My sister texted a photo of our parents at church. "They keep asking about your girlfriend," she wrote. The guilt twisted deeper. How could I explain any of this without breaking their hearts? The breaking point came during a team offsite planning meeting I was still technically invited to. When I suggested an idea, the room went quiet. Then someone snickered. "Maybe save the creative stuff for your other hobbies." Mr. Harlan didn't intervene. I excused myself, walked to the bathroom, and splashed water on my face until the shaking stopped. In that moment, staring at my reflection, I made the choice. I would leave Apex Tech before they broke me completely. The resignation letter was typed that evening, printed the next morning. Handing it to Mr. Harlan felt like shedding a skin that no longer fit. "I wish you luck, Tobias," he said without meeting my eyes. The news spread like wildfire. By afternoon, a few colleagues offered awkward goodbyes, but most simply nodded and returned to their screens. Xavier caught me at the elevator. "Don't go," he whispered, voice thick. "We can figure this out." I looked at him, the man I had loved in secret, and felt only exhaustion. "You already made your choice." The doors closed between us, sealing the chapter. Packing my desk took less than an hour. I carried the box to my car under gray Chicago skies, the city suddenly feeling too small. That night, I booked a one-way ticket to San Francisco. A friend from college, Elena, had offered me a couch and a lead on a junior developer role at a rising tech firm. "Fresh start," she texted. "You deserve it." As the plane lifted off 2 days later, I watched the lake disappear below. The pain traveled with me, but so did the resolve. I was no longer the man they had tried to erase. In California, I would rebuild, stronger, truer, and unafraid. The first weeks in San Francisco were a blur of cheap motels and endless interviews. Elena's couch became my temporary home, her straight-talking support the only anchor. "You're not defined by those idiots," she said one night over Thai takeout. "You're Tobias freaking Hale, brilliant coder and decent human." Her words helped, but nights were still filled with memories of Xavier's touch and the sting of betrayal. I threw myself into learning new frameworks, networking at queer tech events where I could finally breathe without hiding. 6 months later, I landed a role at Nova Dynamics, a startup focused on AI ethics. The environment was night and day, inclusive, vibrant, openly supportive. My new colleagues celebrated when I casually mentioned my ex during a team lunch. For the first time in years, I felt seen without fear. Yet the old wound lingered. I dated casually, but no one compared to the complicated pull Xavier still held in my mind. Late nights coding, I wondered if he had moved on, if the office had forgotten me entirely. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Apex Tech struggled. I followed their stock from afar, a quiet satisfaction blooming when quarterly reports showed declining innovation. My own career climbed steadily. By the second year in San Francisco, I led a small team and pitched a groundbreaking project that secured major funding. Elena toasted me with sparkling cider. "See? They tried to bury you. You grew roots instead." The idea of returning one day began as a distant fantasy. Then Nova acquired a struggling competitor, Apex Tech's parent company. When the board offered me the chance to head the integration team, I didn't hesitate. The email confirming my promotion to regional director arrived on a sunny Tuesday. I stared at it, heart pounding. 5 years after they had cast me out, I was coming back. Not as the broken man they remembered, but as the one who would now decide their futures. The thought sent a shiver through me. Part fear, part fierce triumph. Whatever waited in Chicago, I was ready. Chicago welcomed me back with the same biting wind I remembered, but everything else had changed. I stepped into the old Apex building as the new integration director for Nova Dynamics, my tailored suit and confident stride turning heads in the lobby. The receptionist who once avoided me now smiled brightly. "Mr. Hale, welcome back. Conference room B is ready." Word had spread overnight. By the time I reached the executive floor, the whispers followed like old ghosts. The first all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10. I stood at the front of the same conference room where my life had imploded years earlier, projector screen dark this time. Faces I recognized stared back, some shocked, some guilty, a few defiant. Mr. Harlan, now reporting to me, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Director Hale. Great to have you leading us forward." His voice wavered. I nodded once, keeping my expression neutral. "Let's focus on the future. Nova values talent, but we also value integrity." Among the crowd, Xavier sat near the back, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath for a split second. He looked older, lines of regret etched around his mouth. I forced my gaze away, launching into the presentation about restructuring and new opportunities. Inside, my pulse raced. Seeing him reopened every scar, every quiet night I had spent wondering what if. The meeting ended with polite applause, but the tension lingered like smoke. Later, in my new corner office overlooking the river, a knock sounded. Xavier stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. "Can we talk?" His voice was quieter than I remembered. I gestured to the chair opposite my desk, the same desk where I had once been invisible. 5 minutes, I said. He sat, rubbing his palms on his slacks. "I never stopped thinking about you. After you left, I came out to my family. Didn't go well, but I did it. For me. For what we could have had." The confession hung between us. Part of me wanted to reach across the desk, but the betrayal still burned. "You chose silence when I needed you most," I replied. "That cost us everything." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I know, and I'll spend every day proving I've changed, if you'll let me." The weeks that followed tested every boundary. Restructuring meant tough decisions. Some former bullies received clear performance plans. Others were let go with severance. I made sure the process was fair, documented, and free of personal revenge. Yet the internal battle raged nightly. Was I becoming the man I hated, or simply the leader they never allowed me to be? Family calls from Ohio grew more frequent. My parents sensed something. "You sound different, stronger," my mother said. One weekend I flew home and told them everything, the outing, the isolation, the new role. Tears flowed, but so did acceptance. "We love you, son," my father managed. The weight lifted slightly. Xavier proved persistent. He volunteered for every cross-team project I led, staying late to collaborate. Our conversations slowly moved from work to memories, then to hopes. One evening, after a successful product launch, we shared a quiet dinner at the same park where we had once argued. "I was scared," he admitted under the stars. "But losing you taught me that fear costs more than truth." His hand found mine on the bench. This time I didn't pull away. The kiss that followed felt like coming home after a long war. Tender, healing, full of promise. Yet not everyone welcomed the changes. A small faction of longtime employees resisted the new culture, spreading rumors about favoritism. I faced them head-on in a town hall, sharing my own story without bitterness. "Discrimination nearly broke me here once. I won't let it break anyone else." The room was silent afterward. Several colleagues approached me later with apologies. One even thanked me for showing what real leadership looked like. Through it all, Xavier stood beside me, not as a secret, but as my partner. We kept things professional at the office, but evenings belonged to us. Walks along the river, quiet talks about the future. My growth surprised even me. The man who once hid in shadows now led with empathy and strength. The company's numbers improved dramatically under the new direction. Nova's board noticed, offering me the full CEO position for the Chicago division within a year. On the night of the announcement, Xavier and I celebrated on my balcony, city lights sparkling below. "You did it," he whispered, arms around me. "We did it," I corrected. The journey from ostracized engineer to respected leader had reshaped us both. Yet deep down, I knew the real victory wasn't the title. It was the freedom to love openly, to forgive selectively, and to build a life on my own terms. The past no longer defined me. It had forged me. The CEO transition brought fresh challenges that tested every lesson I had learned. Board meetings stretched late. Investors demanded results, and the team looked to me for direction on every decision. I promoted Xavier to senior project lead, not out of favoritism but because his work deserved it. Still, whispers followed. "The boss's boyfriend gets special treatment," someone muttered in the elevator. I addressed it immediately in a company-wide memo. Merit, not relationships, would decide advancement. The message landed. Performance soared as fear gave way to focus. Family visits became brighter. My parents flew to Chicago for the first time since my promotion. We walked Navy Pier together, the Ferris wheel lights reflecting in the water. "We're proud of you, Tobias," my father said quietly. "And of Xavier, too." Hearing them use his name without hesitation healed something I didn't know was still broken. My sister teased me mercilessly about finally bringing a guy home, but her hugs were fierce. The support wrapped around me like armor against the remaining skeptics at work. Xavier and I navigated the balance of love and leadership with care. Mornings we arrived separately. Evenings we cooked together in my new loft apartment. One night after a particularly grueling quarter close, he surprised me with tickets to a Cubs game. "Remember when we couldn't even sit together in the same room?" he asked during the seventh-inning stretch. We laughed, the sound carrying over the crowd. The moment felt like proof that time and courage could rewrite any story. Not every wound healed cleanly. A former colleague who had led the worst bullying during my early days filed a complaint about the restructuring, claiming bias. The investigation cleared me, but the process reopened old pain. I sat with Xavier that night, head in my hands. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have just stayed gone." He pulled me close. "You came back to make it better. For everyone, including yourself." His faith steadied me. I chose not to fire the man. Instead, I offered him a path to retraining and a fresh start. He accepted with visible relief. The decision surprised even me, but it felt right. The company culture shifted visibly. Pride Month became an official celebration with rainbow flags in the lobby and guest speakers from local LGBTQ organizations. I spoke at the kickoff event, sharing my journey without naming names. No one should have to hide who they are to do great work. The applause was genuine. Several employees came out to me afterward, thanking me for creating space they never had before. Each story reinforced why I had returned. Personal growth continued in quieter ways. I started therapy, unpacking the years of self-doubt. Sessions revealed how deeply the isolation had scarred my trust. Xavier attended a few joint meetings, learning how to support me without trying to fix everything. Our relationship deepened into something steady and real. No more secrets, no more fear. Weekends we drove to Michigan for short escapes, walking beaches where the only judgment was the waves. A major acquisition opportunity arose in the third year. Nova eyed a rival firm whose technology would catapult us forward. Negotiations were intense, requiring late nights and tough calls. Xavier's insights proved invaluable. When the deal closed, the board credited our combined leadership. The celebration party filled the office with music and laughter. I watched colleagues who once shunned me now raise glasses in my honor. The irony wasn't lost on me, but bitterness had faded. In its place stood quiet satisfaction. Through every high and low, Xavier remained my constant. One crisp autumn evening on our balcony, he knelt with a simple ring. "Tobias Hale, you taught me how to be brave. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred the city lights as I said yes. The proposal wasn't flashy, but it was ours, earned through pain, rebuilt through love. Planning the wedding became a new chapter, blending our families and chosen friends in a way that felt like full circle. Work continued to evolve. I implemented mentorship programs pairing senior staff with new hires, emphasizing inclusion. The company's reputation grew as a leader in ethical tech and diverse talent. Investors praised the culture almost as much as the profits. I never forgot where I started, using every success to open doors for others who might face similar battles. Yet the journey wasn't without doubt. Late nights I still questioned whether true forgiveness was possible or if I had simply outgrown the need for revenge. Xavier would sense my mood and pull me into a hug. "You chose growth over grudges. That's the real power." His words always grounded me. The man I had become, confident, compassionate, unapologetically himself, was someone the old office version could only dream of. The wedding took place the following spring in a sunlit vineyard outside Chicago. My parents walked me down the aisle alongside Xavier's mother, who had slowly come around after years of patient conversations. Elena stood as my best woman, grinning through happy tears. Vows were simple yet profound. "I choose you every day," I told Xavier. "In the light and through every shadow we've faced." His voice cracked, delivering his own promise of courage and partnership. When we kissed under the arbor, the applause felt like the entire city celebrating our victory over silence. Returning from the honeymoon in Hawaii, work greeted us with a new challenge. A major client threatened to pull funding over perceived woke policies after our expanded diversity initiatives. The board looked to me for strategy. I called an emergency meeting, laying out data showing how inclusion drove innovation and retention. "We don't compromise our values for profit," I stated calmly. The room nodded. We lost the client but gained 3 new ones who valued our stance. The decision reinforced my leadership and sent a clear message. The company I now ran would never repeat the mistakes of its past. Xavier's role expanded too. He led a cross-functional team developing AI tools for mental health support in workplaces, inspired by our own story. Watching him present to investors filled me with pride. Late nights we brainstormed together, our partnership blending personal and professional seamlessly. Colleagues no longer whispered. They sought our advice on team dynamics and inclusion strategies. Family life wove in naturally. We bought a house in the suburbs with a backyard for future barbecues. My parents visited often, my father even joining Xavier for Cubs games. The acceptance that once seemed impossible now felt ordinary and beautiful. My sister brought her kids, who called us both uncles without hesitation. The domestic peace contrasted sharply with the chaos of my early career, reminding me daily how far we had come. A surprise reunion occurred when a former colleague from the isolation days requested a meeting. He had left Apex shortly after I did and now ran his own small firm. I was wrong, he admitted across the conference table. I let fear dictate my actions. Watching you succeed changed how I hire. We shook hands and I offered mentorship for his team. The conversation closed another loop, proving redemption wasn't reserved for me alone. Challenges still arose. A viral social media post from an ex-employee accused the company of favoritism toward LGBTQ staff. The claims were baseless, but the online storm threatened our reputation. I addressed it directly in a live video, sharing statistics and inviting dialogue. Discrimination nearly destroyed me once, I said. We choose empathy instead. Support poured in from across the industry. The incident strengthened our brand and taught me that transparency was the best defense. Through it all, Xavier and I grew closer. We adopted a rescue dog named River, whose playful energy filled our home with laughter. Date nights remained sacred. Quiet dinners where we reflected on the week. Remember the park bench? Xavier asked one evening. I was so scared then. I squeezed his hand. We both were. But look at us now. The reflection brought peace. Professionally, I was approached for national speaking engagements on leadership and inclusion. Each talk allowed me to pay forward the lessons of my journey. Audiences listened intently as I described the pain of being outed and the power of rising above it. Xavier joined me for several events, our story resonating with countless professionals still hiding in plain sight. The company hit record growth that year. Nova expanded the Chicago division, creating hundreds of jobs. At the annual gala, I stood on stage accepting an industry award for innovative culture. This isn't just my success, I told the crowd. It belongs to every person who chose courage over comfort. Xavier's smile from the front row anchored me. Later, alone on our balcony, we toasted with champagne. To the life we built, he said. I kissed him, the city lights mirroring the spark that had never died. Yet quiet moments of doubt still visited. Leading so many people carried responsibility. I wondered if I was doing enough, if the past could truly stay buried. Therapy continued, helping me process without letting it control me. Xavier's steady presence reminded me daily that healing was ongoing, not a destination. A new project excited us both, partnering with local schools to teach coding to LGBTQ youth. Watching teenagers light up with possibility echoed my own younger self. This is why we came back, Xavier said after one session. I agreed. The work extended beyond profit, becoming legacy. As seasons changed, our life settled into a rhythm of purpose and joy. The man ostracized years ago now shaped the very environment that once tried to silence him. Every promotion, every reconciled relationship, every open conversation proved transformation was possible. The journey had been long and painful, but the view from here, with Xavier beside me and a future wide open, made every step worthwhile. The years continued to unfold with steady momentum. Our 5th anniversary arrived on a crisp fall day. We renewed our vows in the same vineyard, this time surrounded by colleagues who had become friends and family members who had grown with us. Laughter filled the air as toasts celebrated not just our marriage, but the community we had helped build. Mr. Harlan, now retired but still sharp, raised his glass. You showed us all what real leadership looks like, Tobias. The words carried no bitterness, only respect earned through time. Work evolved into something larger than any single role. I stepped into a national advisory position within Nova while Xavier took over as Chicago Division Director. The transition was seamless, our partnership stronger than ever. Together we launched initiatives that influenced industry standards for inclusive workplaces across the country. Speaking tours took us to cities I once feared returning to, each audience a reminder that stories like mine were changing lives. One quiet evening at home, with River curled at our feet, Xavier turned to me. Do you ever regret coming back? I thought for a long moment, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. Never. The pain forged us into who we are. And who we are is pretty damn good together. He smiled, pulling me close. The kiss held the depth of shared battles and victories, a language only we fully understood. Family expanded in unexpected ways. We became mentors to several young professionals navigating their own coming-out journeys at work. Their gratitude mirrored the support I had once craved. My parents hosted holiday gatherings where conversations flowed openly about love in all forms. The acceptance that had once seemed impossible now felt like the new normal. Challenges still tested us. An economic downturn forced difficult layoffs, but we handled them with transparency and generous support packages. Morale remained high because trust had been built over years. The company emerged stronger, proving resilience wasn't just a personal trait but a cultural one. On the personal front, we began exploring adoption, attending information sessions that filled us with hope for the future. The idea of raising children in a home defined by love rather than fear felt like the ultimate full circle. Xavier's eyes lit up discussing nursery colors, and I knew we were ready. Reflecting in my office one afternoon, I pulled out an old photo from my first day at Apex. The wide-eyed engineer who had no idea what lay ahead. The contrast with the man in the mirror now brought a quiet smile. The journey from isolation to leadership, from secrecy to open love, had reshaped everything. Every misunderstanding, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt had led here, to a life lived authentically. Xavier knocked softly, entering with 2 coffees. Ready to head home? I nodded, standing to join him. As we walked out together, hands brushing in the elevator, the past felt distant. The future stretched bright and full of possibility. We had not only survived, we had thrived, together. True or false? True forgiveness requires forgetting the past betrayals entirely?